Hello, your turn. I hope you're good. It's exciting because some of you are going into school this week. Woohoo! I hope that you find it really good and beneficial, and yeah, I'm excited for you. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to set your tasks on a Monday. And give you the whole week to get the work done, so that those of you that are in school have got a little bit more flexibility in when you do the work and how you plan your time, okay? What you'll notice is there's two tasks this week. One is the 1.5 revision task, and one is an ethics task, which I'll come to in a moment. And what you'll notice is I've written things like if you have time on the task. So if you are in the group in school and we know who you are and we'll know if you're there or not, you're going to be more pushed for time because you're in lessons. So feel free to leave those tasks out. For those of you who aren't in this week, we are expecting you to be getting those done, okay? So without further ado, let's move on to ethics, the environment and business. Okay, so you want to make a title in your notes, and if you want to refer back to your revision guide, it's page 70 to 71. Okay, so we're going to be thinking about the ethics of a business, thinking about who are we ethical towards, and what what can we do as businesses. So first of all, what's ethics mean? Okay, you should know this, but in case you don't, ethics, they're guidelines. They're doing what is morally right. Okay, so what I want you to think about is, that it's very subjective. What one person thinks is the right thing to do, other people don't, yeah? And it's a very broad spectrum of what people think is ethically the right or wrong thing to do, okay? But in business, we look particularly at our stakeholders. Well, I'll come to that in a minute. Key term here is a trade-off. It's basically the compromise of doing one thing over another thing. And in general, in business, that means it's sort of thinking about our profit, our costs and our sales versus doing what's morally right and looking after the environment, okay? And there's this trade-off, okay? And this is basically where the trade-off happens. Okay, you can't be ethical towards all of your stakeholders and not have an impact on these things in one way or another, and we'll come to that in a minute. Okay, so first of all, before I tell you or remind you stakeholders, I want you just to see if you can think for a moment, how many different stakeholder groups can I think of? I do at least 3. Do I remember what stakeholders even are? Let's have just a moment to think. Stakeholders. Oh yes. Stakeholders. Anyone with an interest in the business? Yes, you got it. Okay, so let's think about who those people are. Workers, suppliers, our local community, the government, the environment, a squashed moth, customers, okay? I'm not even lying. Pesky things, I hate them. Yeah. Squashed it. I feel really disgusting looking at it. That's gross. Anyway, so these are all our different stakeholders, all right? How can we act ethically towards them? Okay, so if we're talking about doing the right thing by our workers, what does that mean? You know, we're talking about, there's a trade-off, yeah, between paying our workers a good wage and not overworking them and making sure they've got adequate health and safety. All those things are what's morally right, yeah, but they're going to cost us. That's the trade-off. Our suppliers, yeah, paying them on time, right? Giving them a fair price, not ripping them off. You might want to look into some of the actions of supermarkets here, okay? Our local community, are we taking care of traffic and litter and, being competitive in a healthy way? Are we paying our taxes, okay? Are we looking after the environment or damaging it? Are we being, are we supplying a good product at a fair price to our customers? right? That's sort of considered what, you know, the morally right thing to do in these cases, okay? What you're going to do as part of your lesson today is to look at some examples of businesses that are considered to be either ethical or unethical in these areas, and looking at how we can, you know, be ethical towards our stakeholder groups. Okay, so what I've done is I've set you a series of tasks, trying to use news articles, please, firstly, to find examples of businesses that have been reported to be unethical. Okay, and what I want you to consider as you're doing this is to think about, well, what's the problem with this? You know, testing on animals, you know, employing children, all that kind of thing, being really harmful to the environment. You know, so what? You know, profits come first, do they? Are there any benefits to not doing those things? I want you to be thinking about that in your work, finding some examples. One of the negative impacts if you're not ethical is that you attract the attention of pressure groups. So pressure groups exist to put pressure on businesses, but also on government to change the laws and things like that. And they tend to represent people that can't represent themselves very well. So people like children, animals, the environment. Okay, those particular stakeholder groups can't really stand up for themselves. So there tends to be pressure groups to represent those areas. And what you're going to do for your second task is to find some examples of pressure groups and see the actions they take. Okay, have they been successful? Then task 3, I want you to find some ethical businesses. Some are very ethical, that's kind of their purpose. But some try to be ethical in what they do or take, you know, more ethical options in their business practices. So again, using news articles, not just their own websites, because they'll just say anything, right? But find news articles, something reliable that tells you about some businesses that are known to be ethical. And then finally, I want you to think about maybe if you were going to start a pressure group to campaign to businesses to, you know, treat something better, what would you choose to campaign for? What would you call your pressure group? And have a look into pressure groups and think about what would you do if you were one, okay? Now, on each of the tasks, you will find that there's a section that says you can include more if you've got time or if you have more time. And task 4 is only if you have more time. Just want to repeat, that is for people who are not in school this week. So that is the vast majority of you, okay? But those of you in your bubbles in school, you do not have to do those tasks, and we know who you are. So when we're marking your work, we will know why you haven't done them. Okay, so we're going to give you a week to get the revision quiz and this ethics task done, and then on Monday we will set you another task. Okay, I hope that's all clear. Please do email your teachers if you've got any questions at all or any problems with the work this week. And then next week we're going to be looking at the environment in just a bit more detail and starting to think about your assessment piece of work following that week. Okay, all right, I think that's everything. I hope you have a great week. Be in touch if you need us. Okay, bye, Ada.